Section 15, Punishment and Other Disposition Measures. I was invited to a cultural display by a member of the King of Ikorodu's cabinet. The culture of the people was displayed to entertain their guests. The Eyo masquerade caught my attention as they all waved their sticks simultaneously in a stylish manner, which I found delightful. The King of Ikorodu was loved by his subjects, but his cabinet members had received a series of complaints against one of their baales who was in charge of a sector of the King of Ikorodu's territory. The numerous complaints from the baale's sector was the reason the king's cabinet members had invited me to their cultural festival. After the ceremony, they held a meeting in the king's palace where the complaints against the baale were presented to the king. The cabinet members made sure I was part of the meeting. They presented the complaints to the king, which ranged from selling people's lands to taking laws into his own hands. I wanted to get the details of how he sold people's lands because I thought that was where his conduct was registered as a criminal offense. But the cabinet members were more particular about him taking laws into his hands. I figured it was because there were enough lands to settle that issue. The cabinet members elucidated on how he took laws into his hands. It blew my mind that the said baale was running his own state based on the punishments he meted out to those who broke his laws, which were not recorded in the criminal laws of Lagos State 2015. My attention was particularly drawn to the punishment he attached to his laws, which included branding or imprinting. In this vile process, a metal chain was heated till it turned red, and then his victims were held down by his men and the chain was placed around their necks. 2 of his victims were brought before the king. I could see their wounds were still fresh. The baale also scourged anyone who broke his laws, and the whip he used was made from cow skin. 5 of his victims were presented before the king. The least number of lashes was 50, and his victims were tied to a tree or an iron pole while the beating lasted. There were also complaints that he forcefully had sex with other people's wives as an alternative to his punishments. The wife of one of his victims went to his place to plead on her husband's behalf so the baale wouldn't brand him. But the baale instructed his men to hold her down while he forced himself on her. Others brought their bank statements to show how they transferred huge sums of money to the baale's personal account. The baale was so arrogant he turned deaf ears to those who demanded he defend his actions or show remorse for them. After all these allegations were presented to the king, he turned to the baale in anger and shouted, "Don't you have anything to say about these allegations?" The baale was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Your Majesty, they are making it all up. These so-called complainants are nothing but habitual offenders. Your Majesty, I am doing everything I can to bring order and discipline to our community." The king turned to me to hear what I had to say on the matter. I clearly stated that, aside the fact that the said baale took laws into his hands, he also defied the provision of Section 15 of the Criminal Laws of Lagos State 2015, which clearly specified punishment and other disposition measures ranging from death and prison sentences to fine and forfeiture. To cut the story short, the baale's punishment on his so-called offenders had resulted in several other offenses like rape, assault occasioning harm, extortion, and the list goes on and on. The baale faced me. And who are you to pin such offenses on me in front of my king and elder brother? How dare you? How dare you, I say? Indeed, the king was his sibling. But the king was so angry with him that he called on the DPO, that is, the divisional police officer, to send his men to his palace and place the Bale under arrest for the offenses I had mentioned earlier. He also collected my AIG's number, requesting I personally investigate the matter. 2 days later, the approved petition against the Bale was referred to me for investigation. About 25 victims gave indicting statements against him with pictorial and medical evidence. His pride was gone, his arrogance was broken when he was brought into my office in handcuffs. I was able to show him how I had established all those offenses I mentioned in his older brother's palace. From my findings and what we had on him, he would be going to jail for a very long time. Funny enough, he would now face the real punishment he had wrongly meted out to others.
This work of fiction is a production of COSPEAKS, composed and written by Chidi Okoye, narrated by Ikenna Igwe, sound production by Glaze Entertainment, graphics by Illustro Kings Creatives, video production and effects by Kings Media, visual and shots by Sheung B. Thank you for viewing.